Target has troubling news for many employees. The retail giant, trying to reverse nearly 4 years of slumping sales, says it will cut roughly 1,800 jobs.
Today on Businesses Behaving Badly, we have Target, which is laying off 1,800 employees this holiday season. So around 1,000 of these employees are going to come from its corporate offices and 800 from the rest of its employee population. This is about 8% of its workforce. So Target has had several quarters of slow snails now after many people completely abandoned the brand after their media comments on DEI. So Target, I'm not going to touch that issue because it's too controversial, but all I'll say is that Target had a number of DEI initiatives, and then they completely eliminated that from their offerings, and a lot of people went against the brand. So their share price has dropped over 30% year to date. So they are way down. Now, what does Target really need to do to turn this around? So Target needs to go back to marketing to their core audience, and they need to address the DEI issue in whatever way they feel most appropriate. If they want to stick to it, that's fine, but a 30% drop in share price for any business requires drastic and a complete turnaround in action, and Target hasn't done any of that yet, and it's still really suffering. So the point now where they're just like, we're just going to lay off of people to try to get a little bit of stock bump for fourth quarter before the end of the year, I don't think is going to be nearly enough to turn the brand around. They need to start rebranding. I don't see them on social media anymore. I don't see user-generated content on social media about Target anymore. The holiday season is coming. This is the time that people really go to Target, particularly around Christmas and Halloween, so that they can have a big end of year if they turn this around and get their branding right. But right now, this is just more bad news from this brand.
Target is cutting 1,800 jobs from their corporate offices, and this isn't a great thing because I never side with a company cutting jobs when they could cut salaries of their top leaders. Now, their shares are down 65% due to decisions that their board of directors and their former CEO made, and their new CEO is continuing down that same path, making decisions that are only going to further harm the company. See, when Target decided to get rid of their DEI policies and support Donald Trump out of fear of Donald Trump, we the people spoke and said we're done with Target. And it's shown. Quarter after quarter, their sales have been down. They have missed every projection this year. And that's only going to continue. Because now, my whole opinion about Target is further solidified, and I don't want to shop there. Because instead of their leadership taking a pay cut, which would be equivalent to 1,800 people losing their jobs, Target saying, we're going to fire 1,800 run-of-the-mill workers, and the leadership, we're going to keep getting paid what we got paid, and I guarantee they vote for a pay raise this year, even as their shares are down 65%.
Guys, Target just announced 1,800 layoffs. And if you've ever worked in corporate retail, this one hits different because Target's not just another retailer. It's the higher end of affordable. And that identity, it's exactly what's being tested right now. Here's what's happening. Target's cutting 8% of its corporate workforce. That's about 1,800 jobs, focused heavily on management layers, not frontline store employees. In fact, leaders are reportedly being cut at 3 times the rate of individual contributors. So if you're a senior manager or director, you probably felt safe. You've been in strategy decks, cross-functional meetings, sitting in those Minneapolis offices, miles away from the store floors. But Target's saying we're too layered, too slow, and losing ground. Now let's talk about identity. For years, Target's been seen as the stylish cousin in affordable retail, that sweet spot between Walmart and Nordstrom Rack. And some folks inside those Minneapolis towers, they've taken pride in that. Maybe even looked down their noses at the Walmarts, Costco's, or Sam's Clubs of the world. But here's the problem. Those companies are winning right now. Consumers are cutting back, and the low-cost leaders are eating up market share while Target same-store sales dropped nearly 2% last quarter. So this premium discount lane, it's getting narrow. Now, this isn't just a Target story. It's an economic signal. Management roles in retail aren't untouchable anymore. When margins tighten, companies don't just trim store hours, they trim decision makers too. Here's what this tells us. 1, the economy's still tightening around discretionary spend. 2, companies are tired of bloated management structures. And 3, the future of retail will belong to those who can blend tech, data, and customer experience, not just manage people. Now, if you've been impacted, especially if you're a manager, senior manager, or director, here's where to aim your next move. If you want to stay in retail, look at Walmart, Costco, Amazon, Best Buy, or even Aldi and Dollar General. They're scaling, streamlining, and still hiring people who understand large volume operations. Now, if you want to stay in Minneapolis, you've got options too. Best Buy, General Mills, Target vendors, C.H. Robinson, and 3M all have strong corporate infrastructures that value operational leadership and consumer insight right there in town. Now, if you want a change of scenery, look for consumer brand roles. Think product strategy, category management, logistics, or digital experience. Your skills absolutely transfer. And don't buy into that "I'm too corporate for that" mindset. The best leaders I've ever met can pivot between Target, Walmart, Amazon without skipping a beat. Pride doesn't pay the mortgage. Look, I know for a lot of people this feels like a loss, but it's also a reset for careers, for industries, and for how leadership is defined in this new economy. Because the reality is the next chapter of retail belongs to leaders who can adapt faster than the market shifts. And that starts with how you show up in your next interview. So if you're one of the 1,800 people at Target who's impacted by this latest round of layoffs, or if you're at another retailer who's been recently impacted and you want to fast forward your way to interview success, I've included the link to my full interview training course in my bio.
Hi guys, so when a retail giant like Target starts cutting jobs, you know something is wrong. 1,800 workers gone just like that, while the cost of living keeps rising. Target has announced it's cutting 1,800 corporate roles. These are people who thought they had secure jobs suddenly without income. They said it's about streamlining operations, but let's be honest, this is about a deeper problem. America's economy is struggling. First it was Amazon, then Walmart, now Target. Meanwhile, food prices are up, rent is crazy, and even federal workers are lining up at food banks. Something is breaking. It's not just the economy, it's the people. Something big is really coming. Let's brace up so it doesn't catch you unawares. This is Tiana, and you're watching Tiana's React. Let's dive in and see people's reactions to this.
Target is slashing about 1,800 jobs, its first major round of layoffs in a decade. That's about 8% of the retail giant's workforce. The move comes as the company tries to reignite growth after years of weak sales and braces for a new CEO to take charge next year. Those affected will be notified on Tuesday, and according to a spokesperson, no roles in stores or its supply chain will be impacted.
Y'all, I'm getting ready for a banquet, but we got to make this quick. Target is cutting around, it says 1,000, but they're actually cutting 1,800 jobs. They're like marking out 800 of them, and they're laying off 1,000 people. You know, I took notes, so let's talk about it. All right, so Target just announced its largest round of layoffs in a decade, cutting 1,800 jobs, corporate jobs at that, or about 8% of its headquarters workforce. The company says this is a part of an effort to simplify how they work as they fight through a 4-year sales slump. Incoming CEO, Michael, I can't say his last name, who officially takes over in February, says Target has too many layers and overlapping work slowing decisions. The cuts include 1,000 active layoffs and another 800 positions that won't be refilled. Employees will be paid and receive benefits until January 3rd, along with severance packages. No store or warehouse workers were affected. This round focuses entirely on corporate and tech teams. But here's the bigger picture. Target stock has dropped about 65% since its peak in 2021. This move signals a broader trend across retail and tech. Companies are scaling back corporate layers to cut costs while automation and AI take on more back office work. So from an employment law standpoint, here's what stands out to me. Target severance packages extend through the holidays, which helps avoid the WARN Act violations. There's no immediate mass layoffs in retail stores, protecting frontline staff and compliance. But the move also raises questions about remote work restructuring, as corporate teams are asked to work from home next week during the transition. I don't like the work from home next week during the transition, because what if you're trying to lay out more people? But that's just me. I done been there before. I done had to pull that move in HR, so I get it. All right, so the future CEO says the goal is to move faster and sharpen priorities, focusing on design, merchandising, and technology. But for now, 1,800 employees are heading into the holidays without a job. Another reminder that even corporate giants aren't immune from restructuring. Y'all can try to make it feel like this isn't because of that boycott. Whatever. Fair or foul? Let me know in the comments.
Well, it appears that Target's joined the profit over people movement and taking a page out of the playbook. Actually, it doesn't appear, they actually have, by announcing these layoffs. Technically, I guess they're laying off 1,000 people, but not backfilling another 800 positions, so 1,800 less job opportunities for folks, and this just continues. Interestingly, with Target, I think a new CEO is starting, so they're actually doing the layoffs before the new CEO starts. And it'd be interesting to see when the compensation package gets announced, if it's tied, which I'm sure it will be, to stock price and profitability, which means more short-term goals. But before the CEO starts, maybe they're trying to get the stock price up a little bit so the delta is not as high. I don't know. I don't understand the games. Well, I do understand the games. It's all about short-term profits. And I'm sure Target's setting themselves up, because I don't understand how laying off 1,800 people is going to help you with your sales, right? Those are two unrelated areas, but stock price is completely contingent on profitability. And the easiest way to do that is just cut headcount, right? Don't fix your operations. Don't do these other things, because they said they're not touching supply chain, which would probably be their most inefficient. Again, just guessing at this point. Anyway, just disappointing to keep hearing the news. And again, the bigger picture, if you're Gen Xer still in corporate, hopefully you've kept your job at this point. But if you're looking for what's next, it's going to be harder, because there's fewer and fewer jobs, and these companies aren't going to pay you what you're making now. And are you even going to find the job, right, that you even like? So again, this, not a warning, it's actually happening. But if you're looking for a path out, you do have an opportunity. There is ways you can monetize your corporate experience. And I'm not talking about a get rich quick scheme, but it's going solo. It's actually transitioning, helping big corporates to helping small businesses. And there's a business model for everybody that this makes sense. So like I said, if you're burned out, tired, but not sure that there was a path out of corporate for you, I would highly encourage you to explore this. It doesn't hurt. It's not going to cost you anything. And it'll give you options, right? Worst case, you may end up, I want to keep fighting the good fight in corporate. More power to you, but just understand that there is opportunities out there. And I did put together a free starter kit just to help people think through what are my options, right? I've got a checklist in there. I've got, I think, a list of 17 ways that different Gen Xers are making and monetizing their corporate experience, et cetera. Free download. And yeah, so if you're still in corporate, as usual, good luck.
Target is set to lay off 1,800 of their corporate baddies. Now, they're saying that the folks from the corporate office who are going to get let go will get paid through January 3rd and will also receive a severance package. But this is right before the holidays. Now, none of the store employees are going to be losing their jobs, or so they say. But I do think that this is interesting coming after the boycott that happened with Target, because they decided to cut all of their DEI initiatives. Now, Target was struggling before they decided to get rid of their DEI initiatives, but they started struggling even more after Black folks and other folks decided they wasn't going up in there no more because y'all were being weird. All of this is happening, and Target still has not done the most simple thing that they could possibly do to get more foot traction, which is to re-engage with their DEI initiatives and programs. It's like y'all was so quick to get rid of DEI, thinking that nothing was going to come of it. And now you have the opportunity to start to rebuild trust with you all and the community, and you're doing everything but that. This is so sad for the 1,800 employees who are going to lose their jobs right before the holidays and in this current economy. No one really can afford to live, much less lose their job.
So guys, if the biggest companies can't survive without cutting jobs, what happens to the small ones? The system isn't crashing, it's already cracking today. Well, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Please do well to like, share, and of course, subscribe to keep the channel moving. Till next time.